Hey folks, my name is Suds.
And I'm Nikki. Welcome to Calorie Marketing.
Tune in to listen to us speaking to some of the most innovative, brilliant, open-minded marketers we know.
Each episode features a different marketeer with a unique perspective on marketing, branding, life philosophy, and everything in between.
Lend us your eyes and ears for the next hour or so as we discover more about the person and also the unique path that they took which led them to where they got to.
And the real story behind the why, where, when, and how they do what they do.
Without a further ado, let's get to it. Hey everyone, my name is Suds. I'm the host of Calorie Marketing, and joining me today is Nikki, co-host. If you want to give yourself a little intro, Nikki.
Hi guys, it's Nikki back again. In very cold. It's very windy today. Is it just me? I know I'm outside London, so my life feels like completely different from whatever goes on in London. But it's really, really windy today. So if you hear like what sounds like I'm being attacked, I'm not. It's just a tree hitting my window.
I am going to introduce our guest today. But before I do that, I was going to say I am in London. And if there is a police siren going past, it's for the guests who aren't, or the viewers who aren't familiar with London. This is just part of everyday life. There is nothing happening. I'm safe and sound. I do have some people coming in to pick up some furniture. So if I disappear in the middle of this podcast, you know that I haven't been shot, I haven't been arrested. It's just someone's come to move some furniture. So I'm going to go disappear. But without further ado, I want to do a proper intro for our guest today.
Hang on, wait. So, you told me I wasn't allowed to write anything down. Sorry.
No, well,
now I'm not been introduced, but this is treachery already.
Darren, I see this guy's a live wire, so we've got to be really on our ball with this person. The only reason we wrote this down, Darian, is because there's so much things that we spoke about before the actual podcast, and I wanted to just give viewers and listeners a bit of a preamble. So I did break my rule of writing things down, but I hope you'll forgive me. Our guest today is the multi-talented Darian Sims, marketing director at Freespee, an all-round mystery man. When I first spoke to him about getting him on our show, we got in deep almost straight away in terms of we connected immediately. We started talking about all the things that we would like to discuss in the show, to the point where I had to literally say to him, please, please, please save this conversation for the actual podcast. And obviously, before every guest comes on our show, we do a fair amount of research or professional stalking, as one of my colleagues used to say, for lack of a better word. And you just have to spend 2 minutes researching Darian, and you have people leaving him lovely reviews, ex-colleagues, people he's worked with. Almost everyone's had something good to say about him. So, and also the positions that he's held within both B2B and B2C companies, some major brands, some worldwide brands, shows that he's not just a great marketer, but he's also a great leader too. It's with our great pleasure we welcome Darian to the show.
Wow, I mean, I've never had an expectation set so high. So yeah, now I wasn't nervous, now I am. I've really I was quite relaxed at the beginning calls. Maybe they were the best calls we had. But thank you so much. What a lovely, lovely introduction. I'm almost brought to tears.
Oh, we haven't even started the questions yet.
I need to see the tears, Darian. Come on.
Does this get emotional? I've listened to a couple of these, and I've got a feeling that you want me to cry, don't you? Is this a thing?
Yes.
Not yet. Well, we haven't even started questioning you yet on what you've done. That's when the real tears start coming down.
Pressed memories, the whole thing. I understand. On my side, I think you guys gave some wonderful housekeeping there. I hope the tree doesn't fall onto your house, Nikki, but your hairdo today looks like it would cushion any direct impact. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Suds, we all know that siren is something that's not furniture being delivered, and that police siren is there to pick you up, not deliver furniture.
It's going to be illegal to look this good.
It's definitely dangerous for sure. My surroundings are twofold. I have this lovely, lovely son. He wants to be part of the podcast. Don't know if you can hear.
He already is.
But this is lockdown life and lockdown working, and it's more casual, right? And then the banging is not someone at the door. That's the fact that it is winter. It's raining here, Nikki, outside of London, isn't it? It's blustering. Yeah. Our house is leaking. So without the lovely knocking on the side of the wall, we would have a terribly wet winter and lots of new things to replace in the house. So a bit of a weird day for me to do a podcast.
You know what, Darren? I am actually glad that you came through, because we wanted that kind of realism. This is real life. Nothing is perfect as we see. And I mean, I'm a big believer in just letting things unfold as they should or as they really are, rather than kind of creating this kind of image of perfection, which doesn't really exist, which a man of your very various experiences obviously knows. And, one thing I was going to say was you've actually pretty new to the current role in terms of newish, because I know you started back in February, but I guess a lot of the colleagues and things that you've done have probably been with colleagues that you've probably never met, or maybe you've met and then you never actually, or how's that been for you?
I mean, it's funny. Last night, I don't know if you're on Instagram, but I just put out something, and every now and then you want to mark a moment. And I was having a little date night. And date nights nowadays in Tier 3 world comprise of pulling a bottle of wine out of the fridge and then having to eat cheeses and wines and discussing things and pretending you're in a bar or a restaurant. But I was reflecting last night on what this year is, and what actually today, as I record this to you, is a very, very special day, I think, professionally and personally. Shortly after we wrap up on this podcast, I'm really, really excited to bring a team together. But it's a kind of team of wonderful misfits from broad, a very broad talent base. And not all of them are working in my team, but I really believe in creating our team. I head up marketing in a company called Freespee. I think you called it something else at the beginning, Suds, but
my mistake.
It's fine. It's fine. It's my job to make sure that brand rings true the next time we do one of these calls. But yeah, Freespee, named for free speech. And their one truth, their binding purpose is to really bring humans together. So first of all, at the start of this year, I was lucky enough to get a job, and I'm sure we'll touch on that journey. I think the job that was asked for in Freespee is not the one that we're doing now as a team. And that team was not in existence in the organization before. Sort of sitting here after this, we'll be going on to a call with the CEO, who's dedicating her last 2 hours before break with the team to talk about all of these amazing initiatives we're doing and the exciting brand that we're going to be creating in 21 going forwards. But the talent in that team it's about getting out of the way. We've got a film director who's the person, one of the people that was foremost in creating, the kind of interstitial ads where you have a brand promoting the product in a program. So that's bringing a program premise and a brand and finding a common link together and creating a kind of fly on the wall concept for Big Brother, which is one of the earliest examples of such. Now, that is another phenomenal advertising experience there. We have Waste Creative, they're the Drums, voted the Drums Digital Agency of the Year. And I know the founders from past, and they work with computer games, they work in movies, and they are doing this with us because I have some ideas around how web experiences should look and how we will all want to dramatically change the way software as service or SaaS companies market. Anne and I, the CEO, we just don't want to look like a normal SaaS company. The way in which they look is homogenized. The way you can stand out on LinkedIn as a result. It's just those fine tweaks, those little balances. So you can imagine now, what if we didn't do an advert, we did a comedy sketch? What if you did a comedy sketch that related to live sports commentary that was actually about data and insights? You've got these ideas that can cover a bit like this podcast, the kind of rough edges of life, and bringing that together in something more authentic and honest. That's a meeting this afternoon. And it's a weird thing to think I'm talking about that whilst being underpinned by a brand new agency, Ziggy, who have got growth marketing on their mind. So they're all about revenue, not just brand. It's what you're doing and performance. And I want to put our names, our responsibilities, I want to put us in the firing line like salespeople should do. Otherwise, marketing can't connect with them. That's a new attitude as well. So, and then finally, for some reason, and I know why, but I now look after the data and insights function there. So I'm not just the marketing guy, I'm a data guy, but that comes from a history of being half Chinese, brought up by an Asian mother who wanted to be good at maths and physics. So whether I was creative or not, I had to do that. But it brings a passion, and combining that data passion with a SaaS company, branding and revenue generation into one, as I said, sort of kind of mix match team. It's just a cool thing to sort of sit back last night on that date and say, yeah, this is cool. This is a really, really lovely thing we're building, a really exciting thing.
Wow.
So it's less about the job and about bringing this thing to life as well.
I mean, one of the things that I wanted to explore more with you was, you've got a degree in physics back in the days. I guess, would it be unfair to say that you're a numbers man, but also having spoken with you a couple of times, you have this creative flair as well that, even people within marketing, they tend to be quite creative, but you have, a very creative kind of part and also a numerical background. How do you balance between the two?
I don't know, 2 separate personalities, and you're only speaking to one of them right now. You haven't booked the other one. He's more expensive.
That's when we will start to cry.
Are you making the misassumption, though, that physics or having that background is not creative? Because I think, you know, looking into your space, I see how you've sort of merged, I guess, maybe a love for the sci-fi world, which I don't know, into like the way you, the art and the decor of your home. So are we just making a misassumption that to have had 1 degree pushes you away from marketing? Is that?
I love that. You're probably one of the only people that's actually cut to the core, Nikki, straight away. That is really, really sometimes how I try and explain it to people I know closest. Let's take a few people that can stun and awe, right? When I went to university, I willingly did a degree in physics, in astrophysics. I couldn't do it now. As age dulls the brain sometimes in those ways, it's like a language. But I remember my first week, I was sitting in an auditorium, sort of rake seating, the lights were off, and we took literally a visual tour through the galaxy and through the universe. The foundations of physics start in imagination. The way in which you need to propel scientific thinking going forwards requires huge lateral thinking. And philosophy is at the deepest heart of the question of why. And if you take the Venn diagram of why in physics and marketing and Simon Sinek's model of start with why, I actually have bumped into quite a few scientists, engineers, and physicists in our field. And I think it really, really is quite common. So I think it's really just a lovely way of putting it, Nikki. It's just, you know, there are those things. And yeah, there's the fantasy, the Star Wars world, the sci-fi stuff, time travel, some of the best stories root in science fiction. And actually science fiction on the kind of more dystopian side, the Blade Runners, the Aldous Huxley, 1984, that challenges society and human behavior. That's also science fiction. It doesn't have to have flying cars. It doesn't have to have those DeLoreans that I love. But it does mean, okay, well, it's the what if. And I think our practice in marketing, as I said to you, Suds, marketing isn't a thing on its own. It's selling. It's just another stage of the buying cycle. You need to challenge, surprise, startle, ask the questions, what if? That's what you do in sales as well. What are the implications if you don't do something or you do it differently? We have to start that, and our responsibility as marketers is to continue to question. And I don't think it shouldn't be a science. I think it is a practice. And that's kind of one of my overarching passions and motivations to build a team that thinks in that way.
Well, I love that answer, because the idea of sort of what if is, I guess, what a lot of marketeers are doing, trying to say, what if we try this? Not what's the worst that could happen, but, what's the payoff going to be is really what we're trying to do. We're saying, if we try this, the payoff, we don't know. So the payoff is like always going to be better than if we never tried it. So if you try advertising differently, if we try reaching out to consumers differently, what our messaging, let's go for something different. I think one big thing, I think we just need to ask this question early so we get it out of the way is, this year sort of went, okay, everything you thought you could do, everything you had planned, every idea you thought this is the way life runs. I'm just going to say no. 2020 said, actually think again. You started working in a new company, I'm going to say Freespee,
and the origin from free speech. Yeah, the idea of people need to speak, right? And getting out the way, just accepting there's a digital journey, but then what happens and where's the context when that digital journey becomes a human interaction? You don't want to lose the context. So that's Freespee, yeah.
So Freespee, and you started working there in Feb, and by March, we sort of had normal life ground to a halt. So what was it like for you sort of starting in a new job and then having to do a pivot in terms of how you were thinking about approach and connecting people?
Yeah, I don't think I'm just going to be one voice in thousands of marketing and sales journeys. The what if, let's hang on that theme for a second. Those first few weeks, I personally was really scared. I was beginning to realize that I not only got lucky to get into a full-time job, which I was really realizing because I was about to become a father, I wanted to make sure I had financial stability, but also I wanted to move into data-driven value proposition. Then I realized there was huge opportunity to elevate where we were, and I could start the idea machine was starting to spin. And then, as you say, I was involved in those Like any good sort of science fiction story, any good thriller, the rumblings were happening. We were going to have an event in our French office. And then I was called into urgent planning meetings. What if we can't get everyone there? What if we need to do it across 3 with 1 digital connection between the 3 offices? What if then that was an opportunity to bring more people instead of those that could just get to Paris? And then it's like in those zombie films, you kind of always see the news in the background. And as a viewer, you know what's about to happen, but none of us did. And then suddenly we went into lockdown. I think what happened and the way that the leadership team reacted in particular at the core, so this was the CEO, etc. They made very quick moves to protect as many jobs as possible and move forwards in an unpredictable environment. And can you imagine then our customers are consumer brands? No one knew what was going to happen to, the way retail was going to work. Everything was changing and everything was pivoting. And I hope I speak with many out there in any kind of revenue or commercial function. No one really knew the rules at that point. And they felt in a weird way, some reacted in a sense of community, brands coming together, suppliers, vendors, just trying to work out, okay, how can we move through this? And broadly, that's our experience. We're blessed with working with some amazing consumer brands and also just making sure that everyone was okay. And then the fear at a personal level, hey, you know what, I'm still needed here. We suddenly then started to think, okay, there's a huge opportunity to support the organizations we do. Because as the predicted 3-4 week thing didn't happen in Europe, certainly we began to realize we need to really help brands change the way in which they communicate with their customers and consumers. And many brands, digital transformations across marketing and sales, they had to accelerate. What does the future of car buying look like? I've got a dog here.
Hello.
What does the future of car buying look like? What is the future of luxury goods shopping? How do you carry that VIP or personalized experience along? And suddenly we're right in the middle of the conversation. We're more relevant, if not the most relevant than ever before. So the kind of how we handled that, I think was, I don't know what your experience was in your world, but it was a sense of knuckle down, almost wartime feeling in the workplace. How do we deal with it? What are the new processes? Do we pivot our strategies? I think that was really interesting. And I don't think it's going to go away anytime soon. The idea, I think, of emotion is going to be at core to my brand character or our brand character going forwards. Demystifying, getting rid of the BS, making sure you're straight talking, being a bit more authentic. These are things that are easy to apply to some brands and not so easy to others because they might have a legacy. But then you need to really think, okay, well, what's the new concept? How do you want to be? Marketplaces, we work with a lot of them. They're pandemic proof. They're built ready. Without that, I wouldn't be able to buy all the ridiculous T-shirts and tops that Instagram is throwing at me. Hobbies have been created. There's all sorts of things. And whilst it's an introspective time, the idea of having different commercial models has been fascinating to learn. I know it's a long story, but it is just one of just discovery still. It's quite interesting. I don't know about what have you guys seen? You've been speaking to people during this year, right? What have they been saying from beginning to end?
From our perspective, we work with mostly B2B, but also we work with a really big B2C company. They actually have physical stores and they had to shut everything down.
Yeah.
And this really accelerated online. They have online functioning website and they just needed to push people towards that. Just like your CEO, whom I actually connected with, and she introduced me to you when she did a live talk. The CEO of this company was very open. She wants to experiment and try new things out. And so they were able to actually spend more money on what they wanted to do, and they knew that they couldn't hold events, so that went to creating things like content, video, doing live streams, that kind of thing. So there's one part. The other part, we work with a whole number of companies, and 3 of our clients were actually made redundant, sadly. But because these were talented people, they got snapped up as freelancers, or they had ex-colleagues contacting them for work, that kind of thing. So it's a real mixture. And sometimes I just need to give myself a bit of a reality check to say, okay, we may be doing okay, and there's companies that we work with who are working with us because they're successful, but there's a whole host of industries and sectors that are very risk averse. And the first thing they do is their marketing and advertising budget.
Right.
And that's kind of something, we cannot be delusional. So we have to kind of, from our, my perspective as a small business owner, I have to be very, very realistic. Money's, price is very sensitive for them. But at the same time, what we're doing is we've sort of changed our message to say, okay, yes, you can do almost anything to market your company, but spend money on things that will get you, if you spend £1 with a company, make sure that they are able to make a return of investment.
Yeah, that's interesting. There's somehow more money freed up if you're events oriented or you do things in a physical space. From my perspective, I hope this gives us a chance to be a bit more challenging. Like what we said, I don't know if it was in the call or out, but there's a homogenization sometimes of marketing in the business space. One of the things I aspire to do, why not just say ideas are easy, execution's difficult? What if I said to our friends at Waste Creative, I don't want a website, I want a computer game. I want a way of taking a choose your own adventure and making that bond, because we talk about customer experience, customer journey. And we specialize, as you say, with some of the brands that might be historically slower, which I think are very much speeding up, and marketplaces which are already digital natives. We work in a world where you have a high cash outlay for per purchase, whether it's a vehicle or whether it's a vehicle. Could you hear that?
Builders.
Yeah.
Whether it's a vehicle.
Was that a mic drop?
Yeah, not mine. I think there's another podcast happening in the background. So yeah, like vehicles, high-end luxury goods, real estate. When you do that, you've got high money, a lot of spend equals a lot of emotion, right? You connect those two things together, especially on a personal purchase. Then secondly, you've got a very asynchronetic, like an unpredictable journey, different channels, whatever. It's going everywhere. So the truth of it, someone just wants to speak to someone, and that's more and more difficult nowadays. And I think that's where we need to then quickly attach this experience into our messaging and moving forwards, as you say. So when you're working with people, I think people are freeing up a little bit more. Call centers are now in people's living rooms, and there might be a baby crying in the corner. And my CEO said she was trying to solve a problem with a mobile phone, and it was not a traditional call center person. And it was the best and most authentic and real experience she said she'd had on a call center before. So suddenly all the barriers are going down, and we need to listen to those experiences everywhere and say, okay, well, voice and people and humans are behind all of these websites and behind all of these experiences. I mean, imagine then if you meet someone, you get engaged, you give them an engagement ring, you buy a property, and then you buy that first family vehicle to pick your first child up from hospital. These are all life experiences, and you remember the buying process. And I think that's kind of something I'm tremendously excited about. And this year, to Nikki's point, has really underlined the value of that. Marketing and sales need to wake up if they're not already doing that.
I have a quick question. I know you're a big Back to the Future buff. We can see the poster behind you. So there is one version of you in February when you just taken on the role.
Are you going to sliding doors me? Are you Gwyneth Paltrow sliding doors me right now?
It does connect to what I want to say. So there's one version of you, February, and it's just linear path to where we are now. And there's a version of you, which is the you right now, where you've had to, kind of navigate through all the things that have happened this year. Of all the things that were at your disposal, from spending money on websites, spending money on marketing versus whatever else, what would you have done differently? And what was the first thing that you did when you started working with this company?
You wrote that down, didn't you? That's one of the things I can tell. I can tell because
this is where I confess I made him write down questions today. So this was me.
Yeah, when we prepped, well, when we didn't prep, because he said don't prep, I can tell this is a good prep one. And also, you signaled it massively, Suds, because you looked to one side and read a piece of paper because Nikki told you to write it down. But I'll answer the question. No, definitely. So what did I do first? And then what would I do differently? If I could answer it in that way, then I need to go and get a charger for my laptop.
Sure.
So I have done loads and loads of different things in life. And I truly believe that I wanted to shortcut and make sure the interview process can always do something. And if ever you've been you had the fortunate, you've had good fuel. If ever you've had good fortune to try and recruit someone, it always goes in two halves. You're looking at curating someone, and then you kind of fall in love with them, and then you really want them, and the deal flips, right? And in that moment, I think it was love at first sight, I hope, on both sides. The recruitment process is quite quick. I still didn't know the company. I didn't know their situation. Interview processes don't do that well for applicants. And I think to shortcut that really quickly, my CEO said, you need to have a relationship with one of the co-founders. This guy was in, Carl, time was in San Fran, and he was in a commute when we had to arrange it. And I opened up. The key question is, I wanted to understand the motivation of why he set it up. And here's a few reasons in it. And I mean this in a very good way, but I went to Sweden, I met a bunch of people, and I saw the customers we had. I see what product we're sitting on, but somehow that wasn't coming across in some of the existing branding and marketing. And that was the challenge I had to hit. We had a really great conversation, and that conversation really hasn't changed. That first chat with Anne and with Carl as the leaders of the company, I said, why? And what's the purpose? And what's the overarching motivation? And it's very quick to describe, and we've stuck to it since. As I sit here now, last working week before Christmas, I kind of wish maybe if I did anything different, we could have been able to work in parallel with that branding process. And the reason why we didn't, and I'll stick by it, is because the dogs are about to go. There we go. Got the builders here. Go on, Jess. Go get. I'll go shut the door. 1 second. Come on, let's go up. Come on. That's it. Good girl.
Wow.
I love this little added, very much domestic life space.
Yeah.
We might want to rerun that question in a second. So I'll go get the camera. I'll go get the laptop. I just need to find a way of telling that story.
Sure.
The branding piece is earned now. And this is one thing I want to talk to my fellow marketers about. There's a time and a place to do it. If you rush that, I wish I could do it faster, but know what I know now, right? That was the answer.
You know what? If we were to do a print campaign, or let's say above the line campaign, we should just advertise in, I don't know, the Surrey Gazette or Tunbridge Wells or wherever.
Billboards are not being used at the moment. That's so weird, right? Because we've got a billboard at the top of the street here, at the top of my road here, there's a car park. A lot of youths like to do icing on their cakes in that car park. It's really interesting. They really... There's a lot of like icing gas canisters around it. But beyond that, there's a billboard, and it's just an advertise here. And I really wish I had a bit more time, because I wanted to do something and use it properly and just have, thank you messages for something to be thankful for this year. Because around, and I hope you guys don't have too many tough stories, but I don't think it's almost unavoidable now. But, friends around here in the community and support is really massive. That special WhatsApp group. Living in a street now is a little bit like going on one of those coach holidays with your parents back in the old days.
Everyone's waving and you just like, stop it. This is very dystopian.
I don't want to know them, but nonetheless, you do know them. And there's a lovely person called Lady Butterfly, and she puts these like kind of pictures up each day. Someone's selling sourdough down the road. There's a lot of kindness. The lady Jenny opposite me, at my mum's age and a widow, like she's very funny, and I just kind of give her food packages. But I wanted to use this print board and just say, hey, why don't you do it? Maybe mention your Instagram, and then you can record your message, but say something and have a thing. And that would have just been there for everyone. And, it's like we've got a high street in Brentwood, and you could just go and have a look, and then maybe a blank bit at the bottom to write your own thanks. It just would have been a nice thing. I will do it in the new year. Okay, I'll do it. I have to make that promise now. I've said it, but I'll do it.
All right, we'll hold you accountable.
You guys can help manage it for me.
One lovely thing. So there's the road just after mine. They decided to do like an advent calendar. So obviously across 24 days, 24 houses turn on their Christmas lights like across, and then they send a message out. For some reason, we're in their WhatsApp group now, so it's become a whole thing. So you can just go at 6 p.m. every evening and just see someone turn their lights on. But it's gotten a bit ridiculous. I've never seen so many lights in my life. Like I feel like if you had like epilepsy, you sort of walk down that street and you go, no, but it's actually been really cute, because I'm like, I feel excited for Christmas for the first time.
Oh, really? Yeah.
I mean, like other years you're like, yeah, it's Christmas, and then it's like Christmas, obviously the work Christmas party, and you go for drinks with friends, where this is so wholesome and it's just so cute, and you're just like, oh my god, Christmas lights, like you can really do so much with them. People are like projecting things onto their homes. It's gotten a bit competitive.
Yeah, I was about to say, I can imagine like there is
like the stakes every time someone reveals the person the next day is like more lights, and it's just guessing. It's amazing though.
Yeah,
Oh my God.
that would build anxiety for me. But there's a truth there. There's a kernel of kindness, right? That is, you're right, Nikki. Like at this time, often in marketing and sales and customer success, there are a lot of opportunities to go see each other, right? And that's good. But I've always arrived at Christmas really tired. I think I'll be, but we're facing it. We're not going to have. We're the first time we've had a normal tree here. Some friends of ours started a business. Their exotic fruits business is struggling a little bit because all the ports are full up, right? But they've got an amazing company that you imagine all the cultures that live here in the UK. They serve that and other interesting sort of foodies. So then they pivoted a little bit recently, and these are Scottish trees. So we've never had a normal tree, but it will be for the first time we've had one, and probably not many presents underneath, right? No. Because, we're just trying to work out what's a better thing to do this Christmas. We've had a few things under there, but it's not all about that this year.
Before this talk, me and Nikki were talking about how we've been home consistently for the last 6-8 months. Christmas doesn't have that kind of special family time meaning anymore, it seems, for a lot of people. I mean, for me, I'm not able to visit my dad or mum. We meet each other, outside in the street just to have something to eat, but this doesn't have that kind of family time for me, sadly.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. I think we talked a bit earlier, and I love the idea that we can talk now about not just the work, but because it's so blended now, all of this is blended, right?
Yeah.
It was funny for a while where we were like, there are no rules for whether it's lunch or dinner anymore. But you're right, this is, and you touched on it earlier, Suds, our perspective on 20 really different to many others. I've had an income. I just got really lucky, not just to find a job, but to find a job in a really cool place that needs some really cool dramatic things to do that I think we could deliver. That my year is not like, I'm in the minority in this situation. So it was a small Thanksgiving on that, like mini kitchen counter date night last night. It was a moment to reflect. Tomorrow I'm going to do this thing with that, and I'm going to be speaking to you guys. You guys came out of nowhere, and remember my level of distrust. So like polite distrust. Say, what? You want me to chat? What about me? That's weird. I bore my friends all the time. Now you want me to do it in a professional context. But what an amazing day, but that's not normal. None of this is normal. And so what do we do now as professionals and as friends to sort of use the network? And whether that's personal or professional, one of the guys I've employed is at the top of my road. He just happens to be really bloody talented. He's my neighbour. He literally lives at the top of my road.
Yeah, you mentioned this,
which I've wanted to look in earlier. But yeah, he's the filmmaker. He's the ad guy. Yeah. He's got an amazing mind, and the work we're about to launch is stunning. It's really cool, and it'll stand out.
When you pitch the idea of creating, say, the website, you want to kind of have this, make it look like a video game, or you want to approach, how did you pitch that to your team as well as your bosses? Because that must have taken them a leap of faith, because having researched your company, you work with luxury goods companies, but very kind of conservative companies. From an outsider's perspective, how did you convince your team as well as your C-suite to actually go with your vision in terms of let's do something different?
To quickly back up on that then, the thing that I half answered before chaos happened and we just took a quick break was that whilst I understood then that the leaders of the company wanted to do something with marketing that shifted customer perception, built a brand around something that had true motivation and meaning, I needed to make sure that was all measurable. Some of our earlier conversations such was all around, making sure we had the boring stuff, if you like, but I find it lovely and fascinating. Back to the sort of background I've had. So the digital infrastructure was vital. You can't do any of this unless you can prove results. So we built a lead machine. Marketing became revenue focused. The language we used across the commercial function was all about not leads. It was about pipeline. It was about speed through pipeline. It was about the size of the opportunities we could create. And it was about our punch and ability to not just land well in an organization, but also provide them with exciting futures through account-based marketing. And that's why that's the kind of experience I'm bringing to this year in my current role. Without any of that, you don't get the right to start to talk brand and brand character. The other thing we talked about is I see there are two species of marketing, and that's something we tapped on earlier. And Nikki, your point was really clear. The future of marketing should be different. And that doesn't mean to say it should be a battle. So inside the marketing world, there is always a battle between the revenue and the digital marketers, who are all about numbers. And it's causing havoc in the creative community. And the creative community saying, well, we've lost the art now. It's time for us to get rid of that marketing civil war and combine into sort of a better and more cohesive hybrid team. And I've had the opportunity to create that. But one doesn't get the right to do something without the other, especially if you're a new organization. Often in smaller organizations with great propositions, they'll get funding, and then the marketer will always be one or the other. And therefore, that funding gets spent only on brand, or it can get spent on rather ordinary marketing around a digital infrastructure. Both achieve something, but the sum of the two things is greater. And that's what's ahead. So then let's look at that idea. And it is still an idea, Suds, in terms of this. And it comes from a deeper understanding of what the company needed to be. And so we're going to be launching in 2021 around the core purpose that I spoke to Anne about a day or two before I joined, and a week after I was there, that core purpose runs through. And this is now the brand character. And the brand character and all the creativity sits upon the shoulders of performance, the kind of revenue-oriented approach, and then this kind of do, learn, do testing, which comes back, Nikki, to we had to change the rules, right? We had to do the what ifs. What do we pivot to? So the day before I did my first global digital event, Sonny was born. He's got a very good sense of humor, 10 days early. And the day after was meant to be my first introduction to our investors. So none of that. Of course, apparently it went all right. And the reason we know is that it wasn't just marketing saying, yeah, it was great because loads of people came. We could actually see the knock-on effects. And from that, we had lots of calls to action in there. And so we can mechanically move people through. I believe when we do these things next year, again and again and again, because we've got more and more practice at it now, and you add brand character, we fight ad fatigue, we fight the normalities of messaging, and we create something spectacular, extraordinary, and exciting. Because I don't know about you guys, if you're scrolling through certain feeds on LinkedIn, it's okay, but the more popular it gets, the algorithm only allows you to see what you might see. So you see a lot of things. I'm one of the bigger lead generators on organic social for Freespee, but it's a lot of my network and my chums just sort of following my journey. I can't do anything with that in pipeline. Maybe if partnerships would be coming out of it, which are very valuable, but ultimately we need to think differently about how we market. So the website, the journey, the proposition, the humanity, the humor, all of these things top of funnel. I brief in a different way, top funnel to, let's say, once I've created the lead, my goal then is to get qualified leads in pipeline led by sales. And then bottom funnel and after deal, I'm starting to think about how we use influencer marketing in a certain way, how we're providing more and useful content and assets for proposals. So top funnel can be engaging and entertaining. Mid funnel, the transition between marketing, collateral and sales. Everything I do, I don't talk about it as marketing collateral, I call it buyer enablement. And that is interactive. And then at sales level, it's customized. So I give them a deck, but we got some wonderful work by Article 10. They're an amazing, amazing presentation building agency. And they do many other things, but I use them for this. And I've wanted to work with them for probably 7-8 years. And I got the chance here. The way I could just say, don't give me a deck. Don't give me that one pager that sales ask for. Give me a one pager. I want a film that they can produce very quickly and easily. So make PowerPoint not look like PowerPoint. And actually after a demo, and we do amazing things in demo where we put it in their web environment. So it looks like we're already there. It's a really cool demo. That's a high impact. Can you imagine then 10, 15 minutes later, it's like, you get a video. Hi, thanks for coming on board. I'm going to summarize the meeting. And what they've got a few slides. They've added some things in prep. They've got a small version of the demo, all their key points and the next steps. They hit export to film and we're off and running. I'm giving away loads of tricks here, so please do reference me if anyone's listening.
Will do.
But writing notes down like on the slide, like thank you.
Yeah.
Darren, we're going to use some of this for our business, actually.
Yeah, okay. I better start getting some sort of
kickback royalties.
But you know what? Nothing's without a connected story. So then often the people I've worked with, well, those are different things. Those are different projects and different initiatives. And this whole thing is combined together into kind of a cohesive universe of extraordinary marketing and sales clash. But the game itself that's going to be exciting. And I can't talk too much about that.
Actually, just following up from 2-3 conversations we've had before, you seem to take this approach of seeing your customer as a human being before they wear this kind of B2C or B2B hat on. And that kind of, not distinguishes, but that is very evident in the way you approach and see your consumer. Other marketers, people that we deal with on a day-to-day basis, they tend to be very rigid in terms of, okay, we're a B2B company, we target SaaS, CMOs and CTOs, and this is what's traditionally worked, and this is what we're going to do. And if you were to look at some of the things they put out online, it's like the same thing over and over and over again. Nothing new seems to kind of break into that. Whereas
why do you think that is, though, Suds? What's going on there? Because child psychology, I used to help advertise and sell toys. Child psychology is tribal. You want to be part of the pack. And I'm half Chinese, and my mum cut my hair like a bowl haircut, these spiky little ears, and people couldn't pronounce my name. God forbid. I wasn't English. I wasn't Chinese. I had one Chinese friend, one Indian friend, one black friend at school. And we all discussed recently, some years ago, when we met up once, it was weird because you wanted to be like everyone else. An adult culture typically means you want to distinguish yourself. You want your own marketing machine. I'm differentiated in some way. I like this type of music, but there are sub-tribes within there. So why is it then, to your point, that you see the same thing again and again? What is that? Because I don't have the answer, but it's something I'm trying to break through, and I'd love to hear what you think. But I recognize what you're saying. I just don't know why.
From my perspective, I believe this comes straight from the top in terms of if you give your people the freedom to be able to explore, experiment, and in a way follow their intuition, SaaS businesses or B2B businesses or most of companies that, they wouldn't just follow this kind of linear path to say, okay, we have to invest this much money on advertising. This is going to go on Google. This is going to go on Facebook. This is going to go on Instagram. And they all tend to be very, very formulaic because they tend to kind of have this genre of, okay, this is the way we market businesses in whatever context. That leadership, and, they set KPIs. So they will say, we want you to get this many leads for this quarter, and those leads will convert to this many sales, and this is it's like almost a tried and tested methodology. Whereas if you were to have someone who gives you the freedom to say, okay, here's carte blanche, these are all the tools at your disposal, here's the budget, the end result is this. And I think that's when someone like yourself would come in. And like the other thing you mentioned that was very interesting was what Klarna is doing in terms of they are targeting another Swedish company, interestingly enough. They are targeting B2B businesses primarily, but they've got Snoop Dogg as one of their advertising. And I went to e-commerce expo, and their trade show was like a standout place. You could see their direct competitors right few doors away from them who had just the bog standard thing. So
and you can't follow that as a direct competitor because you're going to look second rate. You can't then go and get iced tea, right, to do your thing. In the competition of for example, I love the Just Eat thing. To be honest, great tune. What happens next? That's cool. When the Meerkat thing came, I think, as one idea, and it just spun out. And I find it a bit eye-rolling, unfortunately, to anyone that's part of that team to sort of see some other sort of characters be the central point, unless you do something different with it or create a better narrative or whatever. But you're right. And I think, first of all, Suds, I want to tap onto that other piece we talked about, talking about motivation. I touched on it with our CEO and our founder. I needed to understand their motivations. Then I'm building a team. So do those motivations match to mine, or can I take that motivation from them and give it the turbo boost that I think I might be able to do, either through just sheer will and excitement or terror. There's a very small divide between those things. Think about the roller coaster ride. And then how do I create a team that matches that motivation or propels it forwards? So when I recruit, I talk first of all about what do you want to be? And I always have two columns, and it's not really an interview. I often do what's thought to be an interview, but I'm actually trying to meet the person, and then I'll interview afterwards. So I wouldn't mind having another chat, and then it gets a bit more, let's say, skills and capability based, or competency based. But first of all, and this is probably why we had a couple of conversations, so I wanted to know you and what you were trying to achieve, if you remember, because then I know specifically how to help, because motivation extends beyond role, it extends beyond company, and can now in the Zoom world extend into personal life. I have a very, very, very lovely man who's been in every department in Freespee, and Anne said I'd like him to work with you, and he is now our new head of data and insights. And I'm probably going to be responsible for the divorce of his relationship, because he's still meant to be on paternity leave, and in Sweden they get lots of time, and I'm like, only come back when you want to. And he kept doing bits of work, because I mean, we're both incredibly excited about the data insights function. It's all there ready, and he can see it. But I promised I'd be the leader for him. My job is to be his buffer, the kind of suspensions to soak up any pressure, and also to get things out of his way. And I'm hopefully sticking to that promise. And he is creating something really exciting, but he won't stop working. I keep telling him to just give me one day, and then because his wife is about to do some exams. I was like, if she fails, I can't have it on me. But he's it's great. And just to watch how the quality and the excitement, it comes out across this tiny box on a Zoom, and it inspires others. And I get so much energy from that. And then if you look at then extending that across the team, I've got now a creative function led by this amazing mind who's now inspiring the kind of digital guys to sort of do better. And then likewise, they're teaching him what happens after advertising. It's a cool thing to watch it kind of come together. But if you understand people and help them communicate that more freely, I don't have to do the job of telling people what to do anymore. They're telling me what is going to happen. Yeah. And then that I'm just now this afternoon going to funnel through in this session to show what the next step is. And it's very, very, very far away from where we were at the beginning of the year.
I have a devil's advocate question. I don't want to give you an easy time on this. So let's say...
Giving me a look as if to say, impress me more. I'm just... Can you smile more even if it's not there? You don't like what I'm saying?
So I have this terrible thing, because watching back the videos of previous episodes, I'm like, I look so upset in all these videos, but I think my resting face is just bitchy. I'm so sorry. Like inside, I'm smiling. I just doesn't translate. I'm gonna try, but it's gonna see. I feel like if I get try to smile, it's gonna look like I'm grimacing, and that's probably gonna be worse.
You do you. I'm just letting you know that you're very different, visually different people. I feel like I'm being interrogated because you're not actually saying anything either. It's like, what am I missing here? That last no, it's good. I like it. It's just I think in person. This is why I want to do it in person, because it's different, isn't it?
It will be a bit better. No, Gary, like good cop, bad cop. Okay,
it's like bad cop. Yeah.
No, you do genuinely miss so many little cues. I don't know. I'm quite big on the screen, so you guys are like postage stamp size, and I don't know whether. Oh, hello, thank you for that.
No, look, I want to ask you. Okay, how can a company who gets on board someone like yourself, okay, who has a vision that he or she is going to execute according to how they see the marketing functioning working from calendar one, day one to day whatever, isn't the problem going to be to replace someone like yourself? Let's say you were to be promoted to a senior level. Would someone who could come in be able to take on board all the plans that you've got and still have the enthusiasm or maybe the vision? Because, some could say you have a very unique set of skills, but how would you replace yourself in a business which is growing?
I immediately think I have an understanding of what I can do. And so therefore, I am not suited to be in an organization that doesn't understand that marketing is part of a revenue function. And if it already is it doing well enough? It's a really interesting question, because again, LinkedIn is going to be really challenging it's hoovered up all kind of networking and recruitment. I believe now during this year to continue with this theme, I've never felt that network is more important. And when I network, it's always about what are the first three things, by listening and understanding someone, what are the first three things I can do to support? And I learned that from a lady called Helen Tupper. She's leading Squiggly Careers. She used to work in Microsoft, and she taught me this. Just one simple tip. Imagine yourself cycling through a room. Everyone would want to go to the most senior, the most important brand. Everyone would want something from them. Imagine being that person. They're going to have a terrible time. They don't really meet anyone. They're just permanently taking business cards and telling everyone they're not recruiting right now. But if you were the person to ask them some questions about what they wanted, what their motivations were, and where they were going, and then find some connections, even if it's not you, but say, I think I should introduce you to someone. What's their thought about you? They want to connect. Taking that forwards, that's been something I learned from Helen Tupper. I've carried that forwards, and since I heard it, it's been quite transformative. So check out the book Squiggly Careers. That's pretty cool. And they've also got a podcast. But what does that mean for me? I think it meant that I wanted to curate a career going forwards where I'm brought on at the right time to do a certain set of things. It's about transformation, corny, cheesy word. It's about shifting a few things. The skills I really want to bring to companies is blending that creativity, that scientific approach, rigor. Frameworks and structure are really cool. And then just to be the bravest voice in the room. And if I lose my job through that, then I'm not a fit for the company. But sometimes you need a braver voice around that table. It shouldn't always be the job of a founder, a CEO, or a sales leader to say, are we doing this right? You know, that's often everyone can look to that. And that's a tough gig for them they want that from their team. And often you need to be that person in the room doing that thing where you know how you can help the other functions and then carefully assimilate that into a proper strategy. So the other skill set is I speak not for marketing, I speak for the functions. You know, how can we create a more cohesive product and roadmap strategy? What's my role here? How do I make sure I support sales? What's their biggest problem? These are natural questions. It's just having a bit of bravery and a bit of experience behind you to say, okay, well, I don't know the answers, but I'll bring the right people in. First of all, LinkedIn needs to be better at doing that because your CV is an SEO on a PDF. It's SEO'd CV. You know, you just got to get some keywords in there. Otherwise, the robots won't let you in. And then, you know, how do you say, okay, well, marketing's a practice. It's not the fact that I never worked in SaaS before, so therefore I can't work in SaaS. That was a big challenge going from an OEM brand, a very recognizable one, to a smaller brand that was in software. Canon sold software, you know, that they did that, but it wasn't recognized as just that. So that's a brand problem. That's not a SaaS problem. That's marketing not being understood as a practice. You can apply that. It's one of the most transferable things around. So what kind of marketers you need. So I'd always recruit after this someone that would happily extend and accelerate and scale on what I could build. I might not be the right person to do that in 5 years' time, but that's probably what's needed. You need someone to change and pivot sometimes in a company.
Wow.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I'm seeing brands, I think probably 2020 has pushed brands to market roles differently. So there are, I think every time I try to go on LinkedIn and do anything work or job related, I just think, oh, it just feels so outdated, and hopefully there's a lot of changes. But when I go on, you know, Instagram, I'm seeing brands advertising jobs in such interesting ways, using sort of, you know, video, using story and showing personality. And you think, okay, hopefully you're able to attract talent that's thinking about, you know, work a lot differently, talent that's, you know, thinking outside the box, and talent that knows what's going on in tech. Because I recently had to interview someone for an internship position, and they were telling me, because I work in publishing, and they were telling me about, you know, book talk, and I was like, sorry, what? And it was just sort of, you know, obviously using TikTok for influencing with books. Right. Now even using Clubhouse, this thing popped up that was meant to be a project management tool, but has completely changed the way people are having conversation again. And it's so also cool. Like, it's good to have talent that's like, actually, this is going on, and you're like, thank you for telling me, because I don't have the space or the brain.
Yeah. I love this, because then when you're recruiting, then you're like, okay, now I got to go and recruit. And sometimes when you want a job, you're like, now I want a job, so I'm going to start networking. It's all too late then, right? Yeah. Same thing in B2B marketing for us. We always say, by the time someone's getting in touch, they're already like 70% through their buying journey, 80% through their buying journey. So you're too late. Someone else is already there. Take that right down to the you know, us as people. There are new rules, I think, in us moving around and understanding what we can do to help. And I think with that mindset, you're better poised to actually add value, because you self-curate the things that you want to help with. You, therefore, your, let's say, more professional network understands what signals you're sending out. And I've created a small group that has stayed small because pandemic. My networking group, I'm lucky enough to have a couple of people that I mentored in 2019 through trying to pitch and meet people, and people to pitch to me thinking I was still this lovely person in Canon they wanted. And I said, I'm not. I'm just a person, maybe not lovely, but do you want to meet? And these are young people, SDRs, tough role, man. Like they sit on the phone, they get on email, and I really respect that. And I try and take at least one SDR call a month just to sort of see how they talk, see what they do, and then recognize them for their efforts, because that's a function that needs to evolve, I think. And I'm interested to see how others are in digital marketing, but looking for answers. And in that moment, I thought I'd create a group, which is arguably a bit more social. And people were like, why is someone from financial services here? Why is sales here? And in that networking group, I said, and then one person challenged me. That person actually got me the job in Freespee in the end. But he said, what's this all about? And I said, I don't know, my friend. I don't know. I was getting some, it was actually around this time last year. I did the first opening one and I was getting the pints at the bar and he was helping me. He's like, what's it about? I have no clue. He said, well, it's not clear to everyone. And also you should stop buying these pints. That's not what it's about. But the other thing was I said, well, that's the point. Is like, if you get into a group with sales ops or marketing or HR, it becomes, do we do swears on Zero Calorie Marketing? Yeah, it becomes a bitching session, right? It's them going into their own little network and going, yeah, but you know, it's bad, or these are terrible. They never listen. That's not networking. That's the problem we find in the bad parts of social media, the bad parts of socializing. It's you just group together with people that agree with what you want because it's your own beef. No one's open-minded. So the one thing I've done is brought together a few people. Do you know what the problem was? They all called me Shit Morpheus, or I'm now called Chipmunk. And this is the problem. This is what would have happened if we actually got to meet up. We'd have finished this podcast and I'd have said, hey, we go to the pub. And at a certain point, about 4 or 5 after a few, I'd have said, do you want to do this or this? And both would have ended up being good ideas, but both are never going to help you concentrate the next day at 9 o'clock. So that was their one universal and binding experience, which is actually then in the WhatsApp group created jobs this year, created ideas. People have joined a couple of Zooms. I've said, okay, does everyone want to work out how to do a marketing plan that makes the CEO sit up? Yeah, so we all got together. But you know what? Marketing were there, sales were there. And one guy's an MD of a company, a very cool company called Launch Metrics. Very cool company.
Fantastic work, yeah.
He said, I didn't realize that marketing could do this or thought in this way. So that's proper sort of identification of helping people understand things and also being ready to listen about how to be better as a part of a fuller function, because we're all in one company. We're not tribes in a company. We are a company, and a company's part of a network of partners, and then that is part of an industry that helps an industry forwards, that helps an economy just layer and layer and layer. And that's the point, right? It's not you, it's your part to play.
Thank you so much for your time, Darian. How can people get in touch with you if they would like to follow you or find out more about you and also your company?
Right, I guess let's cover LinkedIn. Would be lovely. I mean, look me up there. Try not to look me up on the internet. You'll see a lot of me and Gokwan. That was a weird period. Actually, do, because he seems like a lovely guy, but we're both half Chinese and people thought I looked like him. And then one fateful day in Soho, I was like, give me a second, and literally yoinked him off a pavement and went, hey. And then for the period of the next 6 weeks, we kept randomly bumping into each other, which is what you might see on the internet. Don't contact him. We won't want that. But yeah, I don't mind. Like, Instagram's quite fun. I like that. That's quite a positive place. I'm Dashbo Daz on there. So I don't mind that if you want to just sort of, let's come back to the humanity of it. Dashbo, because in the old way, you type Darian in on your phone and it came out Dashbo on the old tappy phone. I'm like, this is pretty clever. You guys have created a really cool podcast platform to bait us all in, learn from us, and then sell back to us. I'm hugely respectful of that, and I will copy this at some point.
I'm glad that we have had this chance to have this conversation.
A real pleasure. Really, really lovely to see both of you. You're great.
Hope you enjoyed this episode, and don't forget to listen to other episodes of Zero Calorie Marketing podcast.
If you have a minute, do leave us a review on whichever platform you happen to be enjoying this episode.
We'd love to hear from our listeners, so drop us a message with guest suggestions, thoughts on the episodes, and even compliments at zcm@interestingcontent.co.uk.